That's a very thematic conversation for what we're going to be getting into here tonight about creating some custom spells. Josh Morgan 72, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome aboard. When you tried to join your stream earlier, your computer was sent to Steve the Dino. Steve the Dino. I'm not sure I'm following you, bro applier. Forsaken Synath says, my D&D game today was interesting. Well, hey, if you want to provide a synopsis of what happened, you're welcome to do so, Forsaken. Oh, and oh yeah, Diadems, you were talking about that. How did your session go? Ah, the slime folk. All right. Okay, yeah, we did con too, but because we broke them out into we broke them out into three sub races. We didn't do the floating +1, but we had a +1 in something else. Cool. I'll put actually I'll put that here in our project workshop. There we go. Yeah, so the deck of many things, Forsaken, in my opinion, it is never worth pulling, because the deck of many things can end a campaign, can ruin a campaign. It can be very jarring. You could have worked for, a year on your character, and you pull a card from the deck of many things, and suddenly it's all gone. I have it over here as a chat minigame for fun. That way you can see the different effects of the deck of many things, but it is a gamble to pull from that thing. Yep, there you go. So Forsaken, a powerful devil becomes your enemy. What that means is, if you the next time you go into tonight, the exclamation point random Udark, letter U DARK for Underdark. If you go into random Underdark and win, I will double your experience points because you beat the devil down there too. Diadem says one of the party got out of going to places in the dungeon they had been before things moved along. I'm sorry if I misread that. They party got out of going to places in the dungeon and the dungeon they had been before things moved along. Once. Alright, so that's probably once the party got out of going to places in the dungeon that they had been before things moved along. Okay, gotcha. Hey, Dark Wolf! Well, Technotron, that's true. It's a roleplay opportunity for the DM because it can really redirect your whole campaign. It would be a test in that regard. I agree. Forsaken, you're trying to grind up to Underdark experience. 12 and 7. Hey, Dark Wolf, can you give Forsaken Synath 700 experience? And Dark Wolf, Forsaken pulled the Flames card. And so the next time that he runs Underdark, if he wins, then he gets double EXP. So it looks like he was grinding a little experience first in the tomb to be able to go to the Underdark, because that's the next level up. Or I guess the next level down. Yeah, I believe you have I think you have enough now. I think you need 1,000. Oh, Technotron. Yes, you got the wish card in one wish, and that's kind of a fun roleplay thing that you can do with other people in chat. Bro Plier, making a spell and other things are in the Dungeon Master's Guide that we've been focusing on this week. Gotcha on the phone? Oh, gotcha, Dark Wolf. All right, I'll let you know. The plan for today, XCat, is we're going to talk about creating some custom spells right here. Page 283 in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So Golden goes into the tomb. You have advantage. Alright, so 0 Golden 0 wins 700 experience points, Miss Awu. Forsaken says, can we try to make a spell that is similar to the spell Spirit Guardians? We can take a look at that and see how long the process takes. Oh, Golden, you can go on an epic adventure if you really wanted to. Heck, you could go on 2. If you lost them both, you'd have 300 left, but you could still do it. If you're feeling lucky, the epic ones do give a high payout, but it's high risk, high reward. All right, so creating a spell. How do we go about doing that? When creating a new spell, use existing spells as guidelines. Here are some things to consider. If a spell is so good that a caster would want to use it all the time, it might be too powerful for its level. Right? You don't want to create a spell that, oh wow, this is, I'm never going to cast anything different. Because not only is it powerful for its current spell slot, I can probably cast it in a higher tier spell and not have to take or worry about any other spells that are out there. Hey, Rhodium. Welcome back. Fireball is arguably more powerful for its slot. However, if I recall from the developer's notes, Fireball is such an iconic spell that they kept it as it is. As well, fire is one of the most common spell types, or spell damage types, and it's also one of the highest, most resisted forms of damage. How do you do epic? Exclamation point random epic. Golden. And Daly's stacking up the EXP here. A long duration or large area can make up for a lesser effect, depending on the spell. Avoid spells that have very limited use, such as one that works only against good dragons. Though such a spell could exist in the world, few characters will bother to learn or prepare it unless they know in advance that doing so will be worthwhile. Uh-oh. Daly is Daly is going on an epic journey here. Can you defeat the Demon Prince of Undeath, Orcus? You have advantage, Daly. And I'll have to wait for your roll. Looks like Forsaken sniped it from you. Golden, you're gonna have to wait 1 minute because Daly went on an epic before you. Forsaken goes into a tomb, a vampire appears, but you have disadvantage. Yes, unfortunately, Forsaken, you've been bitten by the vampire, and you've either been killed or you're starting to turn yourself. Daly has a 10 or a 13, and you had advantage plus 6. Oh, nice! Daly just manages to defeat Orcus. Miss Awu, can you please award Daly 4,000 experience points? Technotron, always give a drawback till higher levels, and I'll even have my casters roll for their spells scatter if they try to pinpoint where it's going to land or hit. I remember scattering in 40k. It's interesting that you do that, Technotron. Are they generally okay with that? Because I can see a strong point where they say, but it says you choose a point where, etc., so forth. No, don't be sorry, Forsaken. Things like that happen. Yes, a woo, says Zulurpai. A woo. And Darkwolf gives a woo back. That's great. And Forsaken, 9 and a 4. Look at you, Forsaken. You just managed to defeat the troll. 9 plus 3 is 12. You got there. So enjoy your 150. And X-Cat meows. Make sure that spell fits with the identity of the class. Wizards and sorcerers don't typically have access to healing spells, for example, and adding a healing spell to the wizard class list would step on the cleric's turf. Now, that being said, healing in 5th edition is kind of ubiquitous, right? Clerics heal, druids heal, bards heal, rangers heal, and paladins heal. Golden's going on an epic adventure. You have advantage with a +7. Ooh, can you defeat the Tarask? Let's see what you get. 17 and 18. Golden. Wow, you defeat the Tarask and enjoy your 4,000 experience points. Rhodium, the cleric says, step off, Harry Potter. Yeah. Oh, nice. Excellent rolls there, Golden. Epic. Epic is very difficult to get a win in. The way that I statted the percentages of, you know, like the probability to win, the min max on that spread, it is the hardest one to get a win in. So there you go. Forsaken, don't forget random U-Dark, the letter U-D-A-R-K. You'll get double EXP on the next one. I don't think you've gone on that one already, but when you're ready for it, the devil's waiting for you down there, and if you beat it, you'll get double EXP. If not, thank you for playing. You should have enough, Forsaken. I think it's only 1,000 that you need to go into the Underdark. Fluffy Sheep says that's true, but wizards and sorcerers have much more offensive spells than bards, clerics, or rangers, and much better utility than paladins. So if they could also heal, it changes that balance because now they don't have the weakness they should. Wasn't there, wasn't in Unearthed Arcana, wasn't there a healing sorcerer that was made? It was something like Radiant Soul Sorcerer, wasn't it? Bro Applier, the commands are down below. If you check, there are commands down below. Well, that's, yeah, Bobicus, that's Unearthed Arcana for you. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hey! For any spell that deals damage, use the spell damage table to determine approximately how much damage is appropriate for the spell's level. The table assumes the spell deals half damage on a successful saving throw or a missed attack. If your spell doesn't deal damage on a successful save, you can increase the damage by 25%. You can use different damage dice than the ones in the table, provided that the average result is about the same. Doing so can add a little variety to the spell. For example, you could change a Cantrips damage from 1d10, which is an average of 5.5, to 2d4, which is an average of 5, reducing the maximum damage and making the average result more likely. Don't remember the specifics, Fluffy? Technotron, healing spells are fine for wizards, just if you make it feel like a wizard spell, not a cleric's. Like, you acid splash a target, and if it dies, you gain hit points. Oh, like a necromancy spell. So that there's an exchange of some kind. And so here is our handy-dandy reference that we can use for our own custom spells. And a note on healing spells. Yes, buying the books digitally is cheaper. It's just that you don't have a physical book that you can, you know, reference and you get the tactile feel. You can also use the spell damage table to determine how many hit points a healing spell restores. A cantrip shouldn't offer healing. There is a big Fire Cloud spell already, Bro Applier. For self-healing, temporary HP and real HP aren't significantly different. Something else to consider, by the way, if you're looking to make a new kind of spell. You remember these charts? So, in the player's handbook, among all the spells in the spell section, for instance, we see that only 6 deal poison damage. And you can say, aha, that means that there's an open market for poison spells. And there might be. However, when you go over to this chart, what are the most and least resisted damage types? There's probably a reason why wizards haven't spent a lot of time on poison damage. In the monster manual, 5 monsters are resistant to poison. 95 monsters are immune to poison. You remember what I was talking about with the fire damage type? There are 31 spells, so the most in the single most in a category. There are 31 spells that can deal fire damage in the player's handbook. So it's the most popular singular damage type on a spell. When we come over here to the monster manual, and you look at fire, 37 creatures resist fire. 40 creatures are immune. Now, that's nowhere near the 95 that are immune to poison, plus another 5 for 100 that will take some or nothing of poison. So we have 77. So you can see, though, that it's the second most resisted or immune types of magic. It's tied for non-magical DR. Bro Applier, that spell also exists. You can summon. It's summon animals, something along those lines. And Forsaken, you managed to dodge out of the way of the poison dart. Congratulations, Miss Awu. Forsaken gets 300 experience, if you please. Well, depending on the ideas we throw out, I think we can make several different kinds. I think having a fun cantrip would be good. Then we can make something low level, maybe a medium tier, and then we can make a big level 9 spell. Something along those lines. Uh-oh, Golden is going back into the epic adventure, a red dragon. You attack normally, so exclamation point. Golden, if it says you attack normally, it's exclamation point 1d20. So that roll is invalid. Bro Applier, again, something like a spell like that does already exist. You could cosmetically alter the summoned creatures to be chickens, but there is something along those lines that does exist. And by the way, it doesn't mention it here, oddly enough, because it does talk about reskinning races and classes and these other things. You can very easily reskin a magic spell. Oh, Golden is eaten by the red dragon and is now being turned into dragon poop. Forsaken still needs experience points. Okay, maybe Darkwolf is she might be getting into the car or whatnot. I'll get the experience in there. We could consider things like that, XCat. Let's talk about a cantrip first. Let's start small, and then we'll work up to something bigger. Let's skip ahead and look at what cantrips exist out there, okay? Your Doge has appeared. Hello, Bro Applier's Doge. You said you have a Labradoodle, correct? Norman the Silly, how about a spell that is essentially a photograph? Something like that might be able to work. I don't offhand. We could probably base that around Minor Illusion, which is a cantrip itself. What about a cantrip that does Firebolt, but you can lay a mine with it instead? Possibly. Let's take a look at some other cantrips that exist and use those as guidelines. Oh yeah, that's true. I'm only looking in the PHB. Bonfire and Xanathar's. It's not like a hidden landmine though, because it's an obvious bonfire. But you can put it on the battlefield and make your enemies either walk through it or move around it, so you could have some battlefield control with it. So I think it's only 1d6 fire damage, but you do get to place a square full of fire on the battlefield. So let's see. We have an idea for a photograph. We have an idea for perhaps some kind of a mine. Can you create a spell that if the target moves, they take damage, but not if they don't? Like a freeze sort of spell? As a cantrip? Possibly. It might be based on... I don't know if that would be based on something like Vicious Mockery. There's Create Food and Water for something like that, Bro Applier. Flavor-wise, you cast it on some parchment and turn it semi-transparent. When you look through it and say the word, the image you saw through the parchment stays on the paper. Basically, prestidigitation. So let's use those spells as guidelines, right? Well, that would just be a simple reskin of another spell, Bro Applier. Because you can do things like change damage types. If you want to, I don't know, you want to develop Fireball, and you want to make it Snowball, and have it deal cold damage, you can do that. Now, maybe because of the consideration that Fireball itself is iconic, it's also very popular and also very resisted or immune. Maybe your DM would say, if you reflavor Fireball, I'm going to count it as one level higher. But I don't know. That'd be up to you as a DM, or if you're proposing that to your DM, it would be up to your DM to decide, based on how common of a resistance. Like, if you wanted to create Force Ball instead of Fireball, Force Ball might be a higher level spell, because of the fact that it's a damage type that... Here, let me bring this back up. There is one monster in all of the monster manual that is immune to force damage. Well, you could just make a club out of an animal you hunted, Bro Applier. It is generally more powerful to create darkness than light, XCat. With light, you're revealing more, including, plans, locations, objects, and people. With darkness, it allows for concealing. right? There's a lot of mechanics that require darkness to function. So you can reskin a lot of spells as well. You know, switch the type. In most instances, you should be able to swap the type out. Now, you'd probably have to learn it as a separate spell. You wouldn't just be able to take Fireball and... you know, someone was talking about the Lore Wizard variant in Unearthed Arcana. One of the reasons why it was considered overpowering was because you had that ability as a Lore Wizard to just change the damage output of your spells. And so, therefore, you could make everything a force spell. And so, nothing was resistant, except this, whatever the one monster. I don't even know what monster that is. There's one monster in the monster manual that is immune to force damage. Oh, and I don't want to discourage Bro Player. If you come up, if you come up with mechanics for a comical spell, that's fine. Because look, sometimes you run a funny kind of a slapstick humor D&D campaign, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just depends on the theme or the mood, or you got to take a broader look. In that, if you're creating this food, what else could that do in a roleplay sense or a mechanical sense? Would it be broken to invert the mending cantrip so it breaks things instead of fixing them? Yeah, I mean, you could just break things yourself, and as it would have to be an unattended object, you wouldn't just be able to cast break on someone's sword in the middle of combat. But again, think about it. What's the difference between creating light and creating darkness? Darkness is creating a lot of opportunities that are in your advantage. Light can be, but less so. Mending, it takes time and it fixes things, restoring them back to a normal point. Breaking things can put you at a significant advantage, depending on what you're breaking, when, and where. And you know what? Spitballing is fine, XCat. I want you all to throw out ideas. That's perfectly fine. To brainstorm, because you got to ask yourself those questions. I mean, there's a big trope. Star Wars, and a lot of other Disney stuff is light and darkness are the same thing but equal, and everything is in balance and harmony, and etc. and so forth. And that's just not always the case. Darkness, in mechanical terms, and even in roleplay terms, is in many ways more powerful than light. Neo Realms, hey, thank you. Thank you for the host. Being able to break things magically will create more broken things and opportunities than mending can to fix things. Or, and by fix, I just mean return back to normal. Like, not even improve, just maintain. It's a maintenance spell. Whereas breaking an object is changing its fundamental condition in nature. So the closest you can come to that would be maybe prestidigitation. It doesn't break things, but it does soil things. So it might be able to, I don't know, make something dirty. Maybe not mechanically slippery, but it might be able to like put a little bit of slime on the dagger and make your enemy go, ugh. How about something like minor slashing, that as implied? I don't know if I follow you, Forsaken. Hey, Sketchben. It's been a while. Welcome. Norman, message is a cantrip. How about making a line of sight ranged listen cantrip based off of it? Yeah, thaumaturgy, druidcraft, and prestidigitation are all ways to do a bunch of minor tasks that are just magical in nature, right? They let you do the laundry. They let you do this and that. Hey, BK, thank you. It's good to see you here. Unless you're in a junkyard setting with a bunch of movable nonsense and all of your enemies are blind, making light more effective. Environments aren't always generic fantasy settings. Can you cast a spell on two PCs so that one takes damage if they move and the other takes damage if they don't move? A random choice. Maybe not as a cantrip, Zulerpai. I like listen. There's a real world similar thing where you can hear a conversation. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Bobicus. It's like it shoots a laser at a surface and then it's like fed back into like a little like collection dish, and you can hear a conversation from some distance away. I don't know if it would have a range of sight. It would probably have to be something like within 60 feet. In my group's first campaign, we haphazardly tried to combine thaumaturgy and thunderclap to surprise a room of enemies. Yeah, I can see that as a combo. All right, Sketchman. It was good to see you back. I hope you've been well. So let's see. Message is a transmutation cantrip. One action, 120 feet. But giving a word is different than being able to listen in and sneak and spy. Verbal somatic material. Last one round. You point your finger toward a creature within range and whisper a message. The target and only the target hears the message and can reply in a whisper that only you can hear. You can cast this spell through solid objects if you're familiar with the target and know it is beyond the barrier. Magical silence, 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, or 3 feet of wood blocks the spell. The spell doesn't have to follow a straight line and can travel freely around corners or through openings. And so that's why 120 feet isn't always the full 120 feet in whatever direction, because it might have to kind of weave through objects. All right, Neo Realms. Alrighty. Thank you for bringing the crew over. So Norman, message. Well, message here is a static 120 with a duration of a round, because you just send out a little 6-second message. That's kind of what the alarm spell does, XCat. So let's see. If we do a listen, I maybe we base this. This is also a transmutation cantrip. Casting time, 1 action. Based on message. Page 259. That way we can reference things and go back and adjust. I'd rather have a good brainstorming session, and then we can put things down on paper or digital paper, and we can always go back and increase something, decrease something. Say, you know what, this other spell's probably going to be a better base instead. The force immune monster is actually the Helmed Horror. Interesting. Is it a magic item then? Is it its helmet or something that's making it force immune? There's probably some storyline reason to it, because the Helmed Horror has been around for some time in monster manuals in D&D. So I imagine there's something, you know, maybe in its life it was slain by magic missile and it said no more. Range. So here's 2 possibilities. If we want to make it a longer range, like 120 feet, I would say... I would say that that would allow you to be able to make a perception check as if you were only like 10 feet away, or I don't know, or like you could make a perception check, a hearing based one, as if you were there. If you bring the range down, heck, even to something like 30 feet away, which is still significant, right? You could be in the building next door and cast this spell, you know, 30, 60 feet, something like that. Then that would, then maybe that would just let you, maybe that would just give you the information. It doesn't make you understand the language or the code if they're speaking in code. It doesn't let you see hand gestures unless you can see them naturally yourself. You'll be in lurk mode? Okay, BK Lug. Thank you for lurking here. Golden, there is an AoE spell called Slow. Zulerpie, hard to find a spell not already there. How about a Twister spell? When the PC moves north, their move is twisted clockwise, so they go east instead. The spell might last 3 turns with progressively less chance of success. So that might be some sort of like a charm effect, like a domination, where you really are just controlling where someone else moves. So if we do this, let's make it range 120 feet. Components. A paper cone or funnel, right? You put it to your ear. Now, if we make the duration 1 round, that means you have to be engaging in active listening. Just like you would have to engage in active messaging. And so it's not just something that you can do on the side with concentration and juggle other spells. So you would have to be using your action every turn in order to keep up the ability to listen as if you were there. You point your ear. Let's do this. Choose a point within range. You can attempt a wisdom perception check. You can attempt a hearing-based wisdom perception check as if you were standing at that point. Magical silence, 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, or 3 feet of wood blocks the spell. Well, so the reason why I didn't put it as concentration, Norman, is because you're consciously, actively listening every round. Because if you're just concentrating, you can do other stuff on the side. And we're talking about a cantrip level that is it's not a teleport, right? It doesn't make you see extra stuff, but it's offering you the chance to be 120 feet away from where you're actually at. And I think at the cantrip level, you should be able to actively listen. And so every round you have to recast this spell, instead of having it be a concentration that happens in the background. Your own sense of hearing from the point where you cast this spell you are considered deafened to noises around the point you cast this spell. There are other spells that when you project your senses into something else, your own native senses go dark because you're sending them elsewhere. There's no specific explanation for force immunity, but the helmed horror is immune to lots of magic, so it's probably just a way of giving it immunity to magic missile without having to call it out. Oh, and Eldritch Blast, yeah. So this could probably be worded better. So I don't know if King, you're out there and you're twitching. You're like, I know what you're going for, but you've worded that poorly. But the intention is you're taking your ears and you're throwing them up to 120 feet away. So you might be able to hear something at that 120 feet away. It's just it'll sound 120 feet away when it's happening right behind you. You would delete the can see. If you don't think that would make it, I guess, too powerful. It's redundant with the blocking, sure. Probably put in some sort of a clarification or writer that the spell doesn't allow you to understand languages you cannot speak, nor does it decode words or spoken ciphers. With message, it says you can cast this spell through solid objects if you're familiar with the target and know it's beyond the barrier. So the barrier would prevent the spell, but if you know, like, so Norman, if I know that you're on the other side of the castle wall, I can point my finger through the wall and say Norman the Silly. And as long as it can take 120 feet of movement to go, like, up and around the wall, it'll still get to you. Because I'm directing the message, you know, up and down and all around in order to wiggle into your ear. So what it would allow you to do, Norman, let's say you're in a city, right? And you're on a rooftop. And across the street is a building where you know, some sort of shady deal is going to go on, or you want to blackmail an important figure who might be visiting a pillow house, if you get what I'm saying. And you want to get some info. So you're on the rooftop, and you can look across the street at the window in which the mayor is having this sordid affair. And so you can point at the window and set up your magical sensor, and then what this would I guess what this would let you do is you could then sort of like hide behind the like the low wall on the top of the roof. Or, you know, you could just sort of put your back to it, and you could just concentrate on what's happening at that window as if you were at that window. Well, decode text, you can't really read the text anyway. So, like, decode words as in, you know, if I say, it's a pleasant day, isn't it? I'm meaning something else when I'm saying it's a pleasant day. It's not going to decode those. Although I guess decode words or spoken ciphers might be... that might be redundant. But text seems more of a visual thing to me. So yeah, one must choose a visible or a familiar point within range. I would just give a blanket. This spell does not grant any additional ability to comprehend the meaning of sounds you hear. Short and sweet like a honey-dipped dwarf. The fluff is on point. A strawberry flavored gnome, thank you very much. Yes. Okay, so this seems this seems reasonable for a cantrip, right? Let's come up here to photograph, or I guess we could call it like a as the concept of photons or photos might not be developed. We could call it oh, it's magic, you know. I have an idea. Yes, I do. This is why having a vocabulary can lead you in interesting places. The old name for a photograph. Daguerreotype. Listen should probably be divination. Oh, I guess because you're receiving information. That would make sense. Divination. From French, daguerreotype, coined from the name of the inventor Louis Daguerre. Plus type. See type. Well, yeah, so it's just his method or his style. So maybe we could name it something along those lines. Maybe... oh. Let's go to, you know from playing Life is Strange that it's pronounced, daguerreotype? This is why Dictionary.com and Thesaurus.com are amazing, by the way. Ooh, something with figment of imagination or ignis fatuus. Also called Friar's Lantern, Will-o'-the-Wisp, a flitting phosphorescent light seen at night, chiefly over marshy ground, can be believed... Hey, we're learning stuff here. Something deluding or misleading. Another name for a Will-o'-the-Wisp. From the medieval Latin, literally foolish fire. So then, so if it's foolish fire, so we could call this cantrip for a photograph, instead of maybe fire, I don't know. What would you want to call this? Donut plus spell diabetes. Oh, call it Jaren's painting? Something along those lines? Why don't we just call it a figment? Right? Keep it simple. A mere product of mental invention, a fantastic notion, a feigned, invented, or imagined story. Figment and pigment. So now the question is, would this technically be an illusion cantrip that we might be basing it on minor illusion, or could this be transmutation because we're actually going to consume a material component and change it with what we see? Transmutation, because we're going to alter the material component. Now here, I guess here is something that we can, the old photographs did take time to render. Would we want this to be either a one cast, like a Polaroid, a one and done? Would we want it to be you could take a snapshot on a turn, and every successive turn that you do this reveals more information? Or do we want to make it concentration? Takes a minute to cast. See, now, if we're comparing this to minor illusion, you create a sound or an image of an object within range that lasts for the duration, which is a minute. The illusion also ends if you dismiss it. If you create an image of an object such as a chair, muddy footprints, or a small chest, it must be no larger than a 5-foot cube. The image can't create sound, light, smell, or any other sensory effect. Physical interaction with the image reveals it to be an illusion because things can pass through it. If a creature uses its action to examine the sound or image, the creature can determine that it's an illusion with a successful investigation check. You have to shake it as a somatic component. All right. A one and done would be the least invasive way to do it. Or, mostly an RP thing. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't really be able to submit this in a court of law as evidence, right? Because anyone can just use magic to paint a picture onto a piece of paper. So that alone doesn't, you should take RP considerations. You say, aha, I used the listen spell and I created a I created a figmentation or a figment type, something like that. I created a figment of what I saw the mayor doing behind not so closed curtains. And would a magistrate or something accept, in a world of magic, would a magistrate accept that as evidence? You could also use paint. It could be submitted as extra evidence if it was displaying an example of an already established fact. Maybe. Again, though, in a world of magic, especially if this is cantrip level stuff, so The common folk might even have a chance to learn this. Oh, heaven forbid. You know, what would that say or do? I don't think it'd be widely accepted as evidence in court, but behind closed doors it might be fine, depending. Ah, so Norman, do you want to make it? Do you want to make? Do you want to make it based on a perception roll? So if the casting time is 1 action, right? And then we just say range. 120 feet, 60 feet. I don't know. I'll just put 120 feet for now. Components. Verbal, you have to say cheese, of course. Is there somatic? Maybe material? Parchment which is consumed. Hey, we have a cat. Hello, cat. What are you doing? Alright, bro, no problem. You can lurk if you want. Listen can give you information you otherwise wouldn't have, but Figment just allows you to take a picture, which is only useful for convincing an NPC, and the NPC might not believe it. So effectively, it's just a parlor trick. Yeah, like a prestidigitation or something. Isn't this similar to the clairvoyant spell as Zulurpai? Yeah, it does let you save info like patterns, runes, maps, pages and books, details of someone's face. Yeah, things along those lines. Imagine a scout on the front lines getting a picture of the enemy army. Extremely useful. Actually, you know what somatic? You know what somatic component it is? So, whatever is within your somatic component is what ends up on the parchment. Or as Norman said, hold it up and look through the parchment. TJ, having huge... Yes. If you're a Furbolg, you take panoramic figments. Would a wizard figment a scroll to add a page to his spellbook without using golden ink? No, I don't think Xerox copies has to work. Part of the reason why you can transcribe as such is because you're taking the time to do it yourself and to understand the process. Now, Darkwolf, he might be able to take a figment of the words, but he would still have to take the time to understand it and transcribe the message or the static photograph from from the spell, or like from the figment. So he would still have to spend, I think, the time and the gold. But he doesn't have to have the book in front of him when he could have just snapped a photograph of the scroll itself. I'm being silly. You hold a small piece of parchment in front of you and cast the spell. What you would normally see... because we have dark vision involved. Alright, question. Would Figment allow for, like, a thermal imaging? Like, infravision, dark vision? Or is this bright light only? Dark vision does not allow you to see color. If it's dark, you get a black and white photo. Okay. So in a sense, that could possibly give... If that's the case, could that give a quasi-dark vision? I guess you'd have to consume all the components, and it would look like kind of a rotoscopic tour of the dungeon. But could that allow for a human wizard on a cantrip level to effectively have dark vision? Well, wait, I guess you'd have to have light to be able to see the black and white photo, wouldn't you? I think it'll allow you to save what you see, so if you cast Detect Magic and you can see an aura that shows on your Figment. So it takes all your senses at the time into consideration, because you're imprinting what you would be able to detect normally. No, because the wizard wouldn't have dark vision to take the picture in the first place. So if you're fooled by the illusion shows up. Someone with dark vision could make them sort of a map. Okay. Yeah, it's painting your mind's eye. Okay. So you hold a small piece of parchment, no larger than 6 inches by 9 inches, glossy or matte finish, your choice really, but there may be a processing upcharge, in front of you, and cast the spell. What you would normally be able to detect then shows up on the parchment. Yeah, then you need light to see the figment. Yeah. You hold a small piece of parchment in front of you and cast the spell. What you would be able to perceive at the time of casting then shows up on the parchment. Dark vision is represented in grayscale. Oh, I forgot. Other enhanced senses, such as detect magic, would also appear as they would to you. Zuler Pie, so you hold the parchment out in front of you, and what you would see through that space is what is represented on it. So when you take the figment, you know, it's gonna look like it would look like in front of you. So when you bring the horizon down, the horizon's still there, but now you have a picture of the horizon that you can look at otherwise. Yeah, visually perceive. You need an Earthbender version for Blind Sense, and they just make a miniature model of what they see. Toph about the body people. Hey, Rycon. Yep, we're making custom spells tonight. So there we go. In grayscale and other enhanced senses such as detect magic, fairy fire, or illusions which you have not seen through would also appear as they would to you normally. Okay, and then lastly, any monstrous type creature will always appear blurry in your figments. You think that that should be abjuration? Why would it be abjuration, X-Cat? Norman, could you cantrip to conjure an arrow, bolt, or small stone? Yeah, exactly. That's a class feature, Norman. That's a specialty. So it kind of is, but it's one that you have to study, you know. Guess my joke up here wasn't funny. That's fine. I'll get rid of it. Now, I mean, for Doctor Who reference, you know, you could probably make a magic item like psychic paper. You know, we might be able to do that. Okay. So we have some utility stuff here we have some utility stuff for a concept like the mine. I mean, really, it would just be firebolt, but it would leave some kind of obvious. It would leave some kind of obvious mark, right? Because with a cantrip level, you know, it'd be like a glowing red flame on the soil or something along those lines, because it would be kind of it would kind of mimic bonfire if we wanted to create a mine of some kind. I can hold an arrow in my hand. Now, what could be interesting as well, if you wanted something kind of like that for storage or whatnot, you might be able to do something like create an extra dimensional space in your ear no larger than a couple of coins, and that way you can always pull a coin from your ear. And that way, if you're ever robbed, you have some emergency money stashed away in this little pocket plane in your ear. Maybe something like that could be a cantrip, right? Because it holds, whatever. It holds up to 5 coins or something along those lines. And you carry it on you in case of emergency? I don't know. I believe so, X-Cat. Because, honestly, if you did that, why wouldn't you just choose force every time? In which case, we should just make it a force. Because if the plan is to exploit weaknesses, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. Again, we have to play test these ideas. If someone were to take the idea and run to the extreme with it, what would happen? Well, they'd probably just choose the only damage type that's all but that's irresistible. Hey, if you're worried about helmed horrors, you might need more than the mines anyway. What if you choose between two, like fire ice mines? So that's getting kind of into chromatic orbs territory. Someone works out where you're hiding your money and shakes you by your ankles. Let's make a, alright, there's 9 levels of spells. Let's make a spell of level... Let's make a level 4 spell. That is in the school of... The School of Six. Let's make a level 4 illusion spell. Level 4, the best level. My secret coin purse, yes. All right, so actually we have some references here. Mislead is a 5th level. Let's see what that says as an upper boundary. You know, in old Bugs Bunny cartoons when he's confusing someone and runs in every direction at once. Ah. So here's one boundary for, because this is a 5th level illusion. You become invisible at the same time that an illusory double of you appears where you're standing. The double lasts for the duration, so that's concentration to an hour, but the invisibility ends if you attack or cast a spell. You can use your action to move your illusory double up to twice your speed and make it gesture, speak, and behave in whatever way you choose. You can see through its eyes and hear through its ears as if you were located where it is. On each of your turns, as a bonus action, you can switch from using its senses to your own or back again. While you're using its senses, you are blinded and deafened in regard to your own surroundings. Oh, Bob, because you already have it, Phantasmal Killer, hallucinatory terrain, and greater invisibility. Fluffy, you think Phantasmal Killer is Garbaggio? So, all right, let's look at hallucinatory terrain. "10-minute cast time, 300 feet, VSM, a stone, a twig, and a bit of green plant. It lasts 24 hours. Not a ritual. You make natural terrain in a 150-foot cube in range. Look, sound, and smell like some other sort of natural terrain. Thus, open fields or a road can be made to resemble a swamp, hill, crevasse, or some other difficult or impassable terrain. A pond can be made to seem like a grassy meadow." 150-foot cube doesn't seem all that big if we're talking about being out in the wilds. A pond can be made to seem like a grassy meadow, a precipice like a gentle slope, or a rock-strewn gully like a wide and smooth road. Manufactured structures, equipment, and creatures within the area aren't changed in appearance. The tactile characteristics of the terrain are unchanged, so creatures entering the area are likely to see through the illusion. If the difference isn't obvious by touch, a creature carefully examining the illusion can attempt an intelligence investigation check against your spell save DC to disbelieve it. A creature who discerns the illusion for what it is sees it as a vague image superimposed on the terrain. Well, right, but so it's talking about, though, that you have some sort of promontory or a precipice that you can make seem like a gentle hill. And, a 150-foot cube in the great outdoors isn't that big. Right? Especially if it's field on one side, 150 feet of, I guess, a pond, and then field on the other side. I don't know, it feels like... I don't know. I guess you just have to be careful with it, right? You can change part of a terrain, maybe up against something else. You can make it look like there's a clearing in the woods when there's not. and then, you know, sort of like snicker and laugh as people run into trees that are still there, but they don't see them. If you're camping in a small cave, want to cover the entrance. Yep, yeah. Make a fake bridge over a ravine. I isn't there a spell that can do that already? For the fake bridge? I don't know if the terrain can make a passable bridge. Norman the Silly says, since illusion alters your senses, how about an illusion spell that overwhelms your senses? Damage and daze on a single target. It doesn't say you can make manufactured things, only that manufactured structures, equipment, creatures are not changed in appearance. Hi, Lieutenant Virus. Good to see you. So what else was there? So that's something to consider as a level 4 illusion. There was Phantasmal Killer. Was it? You tap into the nightmares of a creature you can see within range and create an illusory manifestation of its deepest fears. Visible only to that creature. The target must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the target becomes frightened for the duration. At the start of each of the target's turns before the spell ends, the target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or take 4d10 psychic damage. On a successful save, the spell ends. Oh, I got you, X-Cat. It doesn't. So it doesn't make a bridge, but you could make it look like there could be a bridge. And then we have greater invisibility. You are a creature you touch becomes invisible until the spell ends. Anything the target's wearing or carrying. So you could attack and you could attack and cast and tumble and do all that under greater invisibility. As long as the concentration's not broken. So if we're randomly making a level 4 illusion spell, that's between changing a 150-foot cube of terrain to look like something else, making one creature invisible no matter what for up to a minute, or creating a possibly damaging Phantasmal Killer. What else could we do here then? Using those as guidelines. A rhubarb or another member of the Polygonaceae family? That's very specific. On a failed save, the targets have barely audible whispers permeate their heads. The whispers are too quiet or distant to fully comprehend, but always sound like a language the target know. Whilst affected by the whispers, they have disadvantage on all charisma saves and rolls. Compare Phantasmal Killer to Blight. PK does as much damage after 2 failed saves as Blight does after a success. XCat says, what if you could make an illusory version of any creature you have seen and have it move and sound however you want? I believe that, well, Minor Illusion wouldn't do that. I think Greater would. Is it called Greater? It might be called Major Illusion. But I think that's what you might be thinking of. Major Image. Image appears in a spot you can see, and it seems completely real, including sound, smells, and temperature appropriate to the thing depicted. Now, this is a lower boundary, right? This is a level 3 thing. As long as you're within range of the illusion, you can cause your action to move. For example, if you create an image of a creature and move it, you can alter the image so it appears. Physical interaction with the image reveals it to be an illusion because things can pass through it. A creature uses a... When you cast a spell using a spell slot of 6 or higher... Oh, so we jump from 3 to 6. The spell lasts until dispelled without requiring your concentration. So maybe what a next step up would be... I mean, we could say that a major image would then be, or a version of it would allow it to interact and possibly deal damage as per a bear. But then wouldn't that just be like summoning woodland creatures or the like? Yeah, greater or major image is heat and sound and smell and all of that. How about a support illusion spell? Enemies appear less threatening, giving you a bonus against fear effects and any effects that require you to see them, like gaze attacks. What about being able to control sound within a large area, like complete control of sound in the area? Like silence, but your guys can still cast? That's not bad. Like a greater silence? So silence is a second level illusion. One action, concentration up to 10 minutes. For the duration, no sound can be created within or pass through a 20-foot radius sphere centered on a point you choose within range. Any creature or object entirely inside the sphere is immune to thunder damage, and creatures are deafened while entirely inside it. Casting a spell that includes a verbal component is impossible there. Well, if you think that sounds like a higher level, we can have a medium ground, and we can so instead of a silence necessarily, maybe it imposes oh shoot. I don't know, something else. Norman, I kind of like your idea. Enemies appear less threatening. Or what you could do is as a... it would be kind of like Fairy Fire, in a way. but maybe you could point out like weaknesses, or on the battlefield on support, you can paint targets, and so you can paint a target. Green is the one that you got to kill first, or you could project an image of fire on it to show it has a weakness to fire, or something like that, as a way to help control the battlefield and to coordinate your party. Now, is that something that could maybe mimic Rary's telepathic bond? Perhaps. It's an illusion version. I forget what level Rary's bond is. Fairy Fire's evocation. Each object in a 20-foot cube within range is outlined in blue, green, etc. Any creature in the area is outlined. So it's a save effect. And then any attack roll against an affected creature or object has advantage if the attacker can see it, and the affected creature or object doesn't benefit from being invisible. Rary's is a 5th level. I could see a monster casting a spell so a PC becomes overconfident and fights it. There's something, I don't know if it's an illusion spell, but there is, it's a paladin spell. I think it's called Compelled Duel. How about an illusion that attempts to prevent you from being able to navigate the world? The world constantly shudders, shifts, drops, and spins. Targets may become dazed on a failed wisdom save, then prone. It'd be like a vertigo, right? Ugh. You want to talk about a bad time? I don't know if any of you have ever had, if any of you have ever experienced something like that. I do not recommend it. Maze is an 8th level conjuration. Yeah. A spell that disarms by convincing enemies their weapons don't exist. Everyone just dropped their swords. Wouldn't that have been handy at the Battle of Thermopylae, wouldn't it? Something that makes a mirror image of you. While you concentrate on it, you can swap spots with it in a certain range. Maybe allowed to be the origin of your spells or attacks. Like a baby simulacrum. Tricking their senses by totally denying them. A psychosomatic. So, the School of Illusion, as I get it, it allows you to create similar effects of other schools, and possibly even of higher level, because of the ability for them to more easily disbelieve your illusion. So illusion is a poor man's evocation. Illusion is a poor man's conjuration. Illusion is a poor man's transmutation. Because you get similar effects that are lesser or more easily or redundantly saved against. Mass Hysteria. 24 hit dice are blind and deaf. Or instead of Mass Hysteria, what about something like Propaganda? And it would be something like one shape within X feet. Targets in shape must pass what, intelligence? Is it normally intelligence versus illusions? The different schools of magic tend to focus on different mental stats, right? Charisma is usually against enchantment. And I think intelligence is against illusion, where wisdom is against mind control effects. Like other charm? Or is it arbitrary, or is it usually assigned by school? Must pass Y save. Alright, Technotron. Hey, thanks for being a part of what we're doing. It was good having you here. You know, XCat, Fluffy Sheep playing his character Bright on our Tuesday campaign has been doing the same with Prestidigitation. Hey, Vera. Honestly, I think what would be interesting would be someone who could use the Arcana deck as spells, like tapping into it. Granted, they would only be able to use the card they draw as a spell, either in up or down form. However, the spell from the card would have to do with the zodiac signs. Granted, I feel that is what the Arcana should have done, should have had a subclass as. Are you talking about in... like in D&D, or are you talking about an MMO? Like Final Fantasy or something? Oh, in Pathfinder. Gotcha. Ideas like that are fun, but mechanically speaking at a tabletop, I think it can be complex. And also, Vera, thank you for joining us here as we're going through our workshop. Targets in shape must pass Y save. Ooh. This could be something that isn't brought up too much. Oh, shoot. I thought, I might have been thinking of 4th edition. But there's a weakened state where you deal half damage. It might have been 4th edition. That could be interesting as well. So targets in shape must pass Y save, else be weakened, dealing half damage. And then they get a save on every round. If the target's out of shape, well, they should have trained harder. They're in the army. No, that's fine, Rhodium. You can lurk all you want. That's definitely 4th edition? Okay, gotcha. Is that some... I mean, maybe we don't call it weakened as that's not an official condition. But if it was... So we have this propaganda. It's an illusion spell, right? We fill the area with swirling images that are demoralizing, demeaning, things like that. So it's one shape and X feet. Targets in the shape must pass Y save. Else deal half damage. Round it up. They can save at the end of each of their turns. Instead of half damage, why not make them take disadvantage on everything? Not just attacks, but skills too. My gut feeling, and this is only a gut feeling, so in all fairness, my gut feeling is that's too powerful. Actually, I don't know. We're here at exhaustion. Okay, so what that would be doing would be exhaustion level 3. Now, this is something else. I don't know if there's a spell that imposes exhaustion. I don't know if that spell would be considered an illusion spell, or if through propaganda, like you're just grinding the morale down. And so it is, you know, it's concentration, and every failed save imposes a new level of exhaustion. It sounds fun and great, but I'll tell you, if you afflict 20 of my minis on the board with various degrees of exhaustion, it's going to be a pain to keep track of in a tabletop setting. It's like an AoE Rave Enfeeblement, but that's necromancy, so this probably would be too. Okay, exhaustion is necromancy. Oh, yeah. So then why not just half damage? Right? It's some damage mitigation. It's not really affecting their ability to hit. They can still get hits in. They're just not going to deal as much damage, and they get to save. So what, statistically, if you're fighting a balanced encounter, quote-unquote, such as they exist, you're probably mitigating damage for a couple turns. Well, it would just simulate exhaustion, Fluffy Sheep. It wouldn't actually impose exhaustion. It would just make them, you know, sluggish or bleary or demoralized until they saved. Because remember, illusion is the poor man's other school type. And so this could be a poor man's necromancy. So they just feel like their ability to fight is being sapped away, but when they save, they're back up to whatever they're at. So they're not physically, biologically exhausted. They're just mentally fatigued until they're not, because it would be the poor man's necromancy. It could be, Bobicus. It very well could be. We're brainstorming. Boy, if I told you I had all the answers, then I'd be fibbing. The illusion could make them believe they're striking strong points, but they're slightly off. Mental exhaustion sounds like you 24/7, says Golden. Up to 5 targets, or it was brought up earlier, Bobicus. We set an arbitrary number of hit dice of creatures that are affected. I guess it's what? It's based on hit dice or hit points. So people who are like lesser because they have less hit dice or hit points would be affected first. That being said, you kind of want to take down the bruiser's ability to damage and not the minions. I guess it depends on the flavor of the spell. If they're overwhelmed with feelings of weakness, then sure, half damage. If illusions cause everything to just seem worse, enemies more frightening, ground uneven, senses dull and frantic, that would be a disadvantage. Yeah, so looking at other bounding spells, Norman says Rainbow Pattern's a 4th level illusion. Fascinating 24 hit dice. So here, let's go to that real quick. Dun 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 dun. This is gonna flash. I hope you're okay with that. Is it or not Rainbow Pattern, but is it Hypnotic Pattern? Is level 3. So what would be something one step above a hypnotic pattern? You create a twisting pattern of colors that weaves through the air inside a 30-foot cube within range. The pattern appears for a moment and vanishes. Each creature in the area who sees the pattern must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature becomes charmed for the duration. While charmed by this spell, the creature is incapacitated and has a speed of 0. The spell ends for an affected creature if it takes any damage, or if someone else uses an action to shake the creature out of its stupor. How about this? What if it's just what if it's a higher level blur? Like an AoE blur. Your body becomes blurred, shifting and wavering to all who can see you. For the duration, any creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. An attacker is immune to this effect if it doesn't rely on sight, as with blind sight, or can see through illusions such as with true sight. Why not just take blur and have it be, I don't know, creatures in an X foot cube? Yeah, like some sort of greater blur. A Gerbler. Yeah, or it could be a choose up to X creatures. It'd have to be choose X creatures? Sure. You like mass mirror image better? So it's also a 2nd level illusion. 3 illusory duplicates of yourself appear in your space until the spell ends. The duplicates move with you and mimic your actions, shifting position so it's impossible to track which image is real. You can use your action to dismiss the illusory duplicates. Each time a creature targets you with an attack during the spell's duration, thematically, you create a bunch of illusory creatures and basically make a small army. Multi-blur, Merblur. for reasons which definitely have absolutely nothing to do with Tuesday, I've been trying to figure out whether blur or mirror image is better. Golden question, would a monster be able to use this spell? Presumably yes, Golden. Vera, Manaling, I was thinking of race made purely of magic or mana. The race itself would get a set amount of HP, but unlike other races, can run out of spell slots. It can sacrifice its own hit points to use a spell. Granted, the race itself would use this as a last resort. The Manalings traditionally know how to use spells and would be well-rounded in either arcane. You know, I was thinking of that earlier, Vera, because we were making PC races last night, and we made ooze people. And I've been thinking about different races, and actually something similar to what you were just talking about popped in my noggin. I thought it'd be very interesting. I think mass cast spells should be mirror image because blur on a heavy armor character is just super strong, whereas they're about the same on a low AC/high dex character. AC 21 with disadvantage is huge. Hall of Mirrors, you say? I put Mirror Gallery, so I think we were thinking of the same thing, XCat. With Mirror Image, you'd have to keep track of how many images remain. Yeah. And it would be up to the individual to do so. Hopefully you as a DM can trust your PCs to do that sort of thing. Yeah, the workload does distribute itself well. Now cast Hall of Mirrors on a bunch of NPCs and let the DM work it out. TJ! TJ! That's just cruel. As if I also wouldn't be using that on my NPCs to make them look like there's 3 times as many as whatever. Unwilling creatures can make a save of Y to avoid the effect cast on it. If it's not tangible, can't the party just tell the person they aren't real? Well, see, here, this is the good and the bad. Let's say our party of five people cast Mirror Gallery. Well, I don't know who would, but other spells do accommodate for people who are not willing to receive spells, I guess. But think of it this way, too. If I take a big hit instead of one of my clones, and I'm not doing too well, and you're my cleric, what do? Right? Because your clones would look like you. And so it has great offensive capabilities, but it also can impose a balanced complication. Yeah, but after a while, XCat, when you start making a copy of a copy, I mean, suddenly we start having clones that are like, they're twitching. They get some static, like. It just turns into a weird, like, a glitch gallery. Hey, Mr. Plunderloot. It is me, but I'm going to be getting up to take a quick break here. And then when we come back, I think we can make... so this is like a low level. Then why don't we go for... I'll roll another d4, and it'll be 5, 6, 7, 8. And then as our last spell in part 2, let's come up with a juicy level 9 spell. Mirror image specifies only attacks. The heal... Well, but to heal, you have to touch someone. I guess that's not an attack roll, technically. I don't know, though. Could you target the right one? Because otherwise, if I can tell, like, if I'm the only one who's injured and my other clones aren't, then I shouldn't even worry about the clones. I don't know. It seems kind of like a sticky wicket, doesn't it? Can you roll before you go on break? Sure. So I'm gonna roll another d4, and we're gonna come up with a 6th level. A 6th level enchantment spell. So there we go. So you can start thinking of this, load up some info. I'm going to take a break and be back in 5 to 10 minutes or so. Okay, everyone?